Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pinch of Salt, where we'll be breaking down all 10 NACL teams in the 10 days leading up to the NACL regular season beginning. We are near the end, just 2 days away to the start of 2024, and we have finally reached our LCS affiliate organizations here in the LCS Challengers League. Team Liquid Challengers is the second place team according to the average rank in our fan poll that we sent out a couple of weeks ago, and no surprise for the most part, this team was dominant throughout most of 2023, faltered a little bit at the end towards the playoffs, but this year Hawk are coming together with a brand new look roster.
Yeah, 4 players getting changed out. Only Kim Down returning in the support position. Otherwise, they're rounding things out with Jenkins, Keel, Romer, and Spawn. Keel and Spawn, of course, played in the Challengers League last split. Keel was the 3rd place MVP jungler for Wildcard Gaming in the summer after playing for them all year. Spawn coming off, Grapes, I think it's fair to say, a disappointing split on Team Fish Taco, but most people would agree that his individual level of play still had a lot to offer on that team despite the circumstances. But otherwise, it's 2 faces that we haven't seen either in a hot second for Jenkins. He took a split off after CLG disbanded at the end of spring, and Romer, who is one of 2 imports coming over in the mid lane from the FCK Challengers League on Hanwha Life. So some interesting new pieces. They got a bit of an eclectic mix of players here, Graves.
Yeah, I mean, good to have a bunch of the veterans that I know many people think of very, very highly here in 2024. My highlight here for this team is that they've kept the formula that has been working for them as a developmental program. I think many would say that Team Liquid have had the best Tier 2/Academy system over the last few years, promoting players like Harry and Jan and APA eventually at some point as well throughout the last couple of years. And while it is sad to see some of these players go, Mir, actually, Hawk, you'll be seeing a little bit more in the CB lull here this upcoming season on Furia. But Bradley, I think, has taken a bit of a split off to boot camp, and I really don't know what's going on with Harry, but hopefully he's able to find a team soon. Either way, they have kind of stayed with this 2 veteran, 3 newer player system, which I know we've talked about a lot as what we think is a pretty good way to boost up young talent and keep a competitive, team. And by all means, they did it once again with what they brought together here.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And I mean, I think Team Liquid has put together a team that makes a lot of sense from the perspective of, trying to support their LCS team and make sure that they're able to continue developing talent, right? As you said, they've got 2 more developmental pieces, 3 veterans, but, even looking at these veterans, right, in particular, someone like Keel is a player that I would think you are hoping promotes into the LCS at some point, either with your own organization or you're able to sell him to another organization. This feels like a player that could be on that trajectory. You've got someone like Romer coming in from Korea. I've heard mixed expectations as far as Romer concerned. I'm actually not really sure what to think of that move in particular, but the fact remains that, this is somebody that in theory you're hoping can maybe start for your LCS team or another LCS team in the future. So I think this roster, it makes sense. And TLC, one of the 2 LCS affiliates that does still see the value in Challengers League and wanting to keep that roster together, or like that spot, and the benefits that developing talent has. So unsurprisingly, they're going to continue doing so.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest. Have watched almost 0 LCK Challengers League over in my lifetime. So
Grapes, almost 0 is more than me. So because I have watched confidently 0. So
shout out to Atlas and Chronicler, the whole LCK crew last year that turned on their stream and had them. I'm not going to say I know anything about that just because I watched maybe half a game combined over the last couple of months. Romer, we'll see if he's good. What I know that there have been instances recently, specifically with Berserker, of players coming over from LCK Challengers and playing very, very well. I think the difference is somebody like Berserker was already kind of regarded as a very, very high quality player that would likely have played in the LCK if it wasn't for Cloud9 picking him up. I don't know if the same, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, any big LCK Challengers fans out there. I don't think this was necessarily the case with Romer, and so that is where I think maybe that's why Team Liquid decided to bring him on to the Challengers team instead of, immediately subbing him into LCS like we saw with other players like Mask and Dove, which I think is a bit of a healthier situation, especially maybe here for NACL, where mid lane has been kind of picked apart a little bit with Insanity and APA making their way to LCS. Finding new ways to kind of supplant that pipeline, I think is a good thing, especially for this team, because Team Liquid,
Yeah,
one of the only teams that can actually import players because they are still an LCS org.
I am working off of just information I've heard through other people. I have gone to zero primary sources, only secondary sources. And from what I understand, Roamer was not a regarded prospect in the LCKCL. With that being said, could he still be very, very good for this team? Absolutely. But Grapes, I guess I'll just get into my area of concern. This mid jungle is going to be really interesting because Roamer, again, not a highly regarded prospect in the CL. Does that mean he could not be a highly regarded prospect in the NCL? Absolutely not. He could improve a hell of a lot over here. He could be a great player for this team. But just like, he does not have the expectations of someone like Berserker based on what I have been told. And he's going to be alongside a jungler in Keel that has been very well known for an aggressive playstyle that is generally very selfish as well. And not, I don't say that in, a detrimental way, but Keel does put the carry pants on, especially early to mid game. He is comfortable with being that big bridge jungler to put the gold on himself, get the team then to the place that they need to be in the game. And there's going to be, I think, some growing pains for this mid jungle. How Keel and Roamer work together, I think, is going to be a really big litmus test for this team as we move into the season. And I would not be surprised if it takes a bit to get off the ground.
Yeah, no, I definitely. I think I said maybe similar things about Keel and Saligo actually back in 2023, where Saligo, I think somebody who is known for like his control mage play, playing heavy carries, wondering how that would work. It worked out. It ended up working out pretty well.
Yeah, and they made it work. So it definitely could work, but
we'll
when you
see,
add in the
yeah.
extra barriers, like language barrier, anything like that,
Yeah,
it might be spicy.
Unlike some of the other teams that we've talked about recently, like Disguise and Supernova, who were part of our previous episodes, I think one of the things I said about Supernova is that they had quote-unquote 0 question marks, and I think a similar thing could be said for a team like DSG. There are some question marks here on this Team Liquid Challengers roster, most notably in the mid lane, as he's somebody that we haven't really seen just yet, which, could mean he becomes very good and this Team Liquid Challengers team really goes far, or maybe they're not as good, and, things end up kind of flattening out a little bit here. I do think, though, it is important to note that, like, even though Jenkins and Spawn have, like, been in LCS, they've, like, been a part of this ecosystem for a while, being maybe not as high or, like, more disappointed in them just because they didn't look the best in LCS, I think is a mistake that some people could potentially be making here, because you remember even a year ago when Spawn was moved to the NACL team of Dignitas after getting swapped out for Tomo, just slid right in as once again being one of the most dominant bot lanes in the NACL. Didn't work as well for him in the summer as he was working with a role swapped NXI in the bottom lane, but I think he still had some good moments there on Taco and is still a very good high mechanical marksman that will be able to play well here for TL. And the same could be said for Jenkins, who's able to bring out weird counter picks and have a very, very strong presence, like especially in the laning phase.
Yeah, these side lanes should definitely be really solid. I think Jenkins, Spawn, Kim Down will all be varying levels of very good to great for this team, game in and game out. I don't think that either of these side lanes are going to be the best top lane or the best bot lane in the NACL, but they should be in like the upper echelon. I think these should be relatively known quantities, and given the volatility of the mid jungle, I think that is going to be a huge asset, because I have question marks about how Keel and Roamer will work together, but at least in Keel's case, we know how fucking great of a player this guy can be. So having at least the stable side lanes to hopefully balance things out, I do think, again, Graves, kind of sticking to your idea of keeping the formula, I think this Team Liquid roster does hypothetically make a lot of sense, especially if Roamer is able to slot in the way that he needs to. This team should be pretty solid.
The one player we haven't talked about, surprisingly, is the one that actually is kind of sticking from last year, and that's Kim Down. I'm very excited to see how he actually ends up doing. Worked well with Arrow last split. I think also like had a lot of time being able to work with Core JJ and things like that, and I went from somebody who we both were pretty down on, I think, going into the season, to
I don't
become
know.
a very, very
I was
good
kind of a Kim down
player.
Coper.
You were one of the copers for sure, but
Yeah,
I
I
think
was a Coper.
I mean, I don't know if we had him like kind of at the level
No, I did
that he
not
ended
have
up
him
becoming.
high on my board or anything necessarily.
Yeah,
But
but so I'm excited to watch another year of this guy because again, coming straight from collegiate and definitely having his struggles at the start of the year to then becoming a very, very strong support. I wonder what, the addition of Spawn is going to look like, and how he's going to be able to continue that trajectory here,
yeah,
and kind of carrying the legacy here for Team Liquid Challengers.
yeah. I mean, Spawn is just another veteran AD carry to pair alongside this young support. I think this bot lane should just be very strong. I don't expect them to get outright beaten by a lot of bot lanes. And at the same time, I don't know if I expect them to outright beat a lot of bot lanes in their own right. And I think part of that is also just Spawn's playstyle. He has never been someone that's necessarily going to dominate you, but rather more in the consistent carry sort of archetype, which,
Yep.
again, I think makes a lot of sense for this team.
Yeah. I guess the only thing we haven't touched on before we head into our ranking is that this is going to be a Challengers team without Spawn on Team Liquid. He got promoted. So congratulations to Spawn. He did so well in the academy
Yeah,
space for all
Australian
these years
Spawn.
that he's finally getting his chance. Yeah, not this Spawn. It's a different Spawn. So I think they have one Spawn still on
They
their
had
team.
to keep their Spawn quota. Yeah.
But we'll see what their new coach Mash is able to do. Hopefully Spawn, the other Australian Spawn, is still involved in some way here with this Challengers roster. I'm not sure. My guess is they're not actually going to be playing in person together. I could be mistaken by that, because I know that's no longer a requirement here for these NACL teams. But yeah, it's going to be a new look for Team Liquid, both in terms of the players they have, but also kind of the staff and infrastructure and what has benefited them for so long. We'll see if they're able to adjust.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, I would hope that, it seems to me, especially with, again, Team Liquid retaining their Challengers League, that they understand how the space is able to function and they have the organization to be able to prop this team up. But Grapes, Team Liquid Challengers has been power ranked second by the community, a very, very high ranking. They are average 2.89, of course, our second place team. Do you think they should be higher, lower, or just about right?
Well, if I'm doing my math right, I think I had Disguise a little higher, if I'm not wrong. So I think that
you
does
did, yeah.
mean Team Liquid would have to be a little bit lower here, which I don't feel good about. I know that going into last year, Team Liquid was, I think, regarded as like a middle-ish of the pack team, like in the top half, but not like the top like 2 or 3. And obviously that kind of proved to be a little bit wrong, especially with how they were able to play like in the summer split. I'm gonna power rank them kind of in a similar spot, like that third or fourth, if you calculate the highs and lowers the right way. I think this team definitely could reach some really high highs, especially if the newer pieces, Keel, Romer, and Kimdown, all take these really big steps. I'm just not so sure, especially because there are some other players that we've seen in this league perform very well. I guess the big question mark is just Romer in the mid lane, and we have the fact that we really have no idea what to expect from him. It's hard to put them like kind of in a power ranking, so I'll say lower.
Yeah, I'm in agreement, Grapes. But maybe I'm in agreement with you in the answer, but I think this team is like solidly not second for me. I'm surprised to see them this way. I think this team will be very, very good. And I think this team will really take care of like a lot of the teams in the bottom half of the standings. Like I think the floor of this team should be pretty high, but I think for this team at the same time to be able to contest with teams like our number one team, which now you all just know as FlyQuest Challengers.
Whoa, spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler, boy. To be able to contest with a team like Disguise, Supernova. I mean, honestly, even like AoE, like I think Romer's gonna need to be really, really good, and he might be, but I don't know if that is gonna be the case, especially off the bat. And if we're talking regular season ranking, I think I see TL's floor as being high, but I do not see this team being an outright contender for the championship. So I would have them lower as well.
I think they could get there, and
Anyone could. Team Liquid definitely could, but if I'm gonna like list out like if I were to give you betting odds on each team to win the whole thing at the end, I think Team Liquid I would give you pretty favorable odds, as in like for the better, where you'd make a lot
Okay.
of money.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to compare, who's up next, obviously, to the roster that we have here, because I think there are maybe a little bit more similarities than we might see at first glance. But I understand the community putting them here in this place, and I guess we both said lower, but maybe we'll be proven wrong in a little bit. Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe we will be proven wrong. Let us know on social media at Salty Runback Pod if you disagree and think that Team Liquid should remain in second place where the community has them. Otherwise, take it with a pinch of salt. We are, 2 days away from the start of NACL this Saturday evening, January 20th, right after LCS on LCS_Challengers. Grapes, I'm going to be there on opening day, and I'm going to come home and watch NACL. It's going to be a beautiful day filled with League of Legends, and you're not going to want to miss it. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. See you all tomorrow for the last one.